Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Inside Picard, a very special spin-off series from the creators of Warped. My name is Matt.
My name is Sean.
What was that? What just happened?
A beer burp. I'm sorry. I was gonna say my name, but I got hurt. My name's Minwin.
Oh, boy.
I'm inebriated over
Off
here.
to a great start as usual, gentlemen.
Here we are.
This is our very special spin-off series where we are recapping Star Trek Picard. Today we are talking about episode 4, Absolute Candor, written by Michael Chabon, directed by Mr. Riker himself. Jonathan Frakes returns to Star Trek to direct. He directed this week's, and he's directing episode 5 as well. Min, you probably, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but Jonathan Frakes has directed a number of Star Trek over the years, a number of episodes, and 2 of the movies, including what was arguably the best one,
which is
First Contact. He directed First Contact and
Nemesis, right?
Insurrection. No, Insurrection.
Who directed Nemesis?
Somebody I don't know. It was some new guy, David Carson, maybe I think his name was.
Okay.
It's not Jonathan Frakes.
Well, he directed the best and the worst.
Wow, that's quite the spectrum. I thought you said Wrath of Khan was the best.
No. We're talking next gen.
Of next gen movies.
Okay.
So,
I'm just talking about next gen movies. Don't you think Insurrection is the worst of the 4?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
It's
First Contact
not
definitely the
great.
best.
It's that movie feels like a blown up episode of the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Such a one-off thing.
It was such a standard issue show plot that they turned into a movie. Like they didn't. Anyway, we're not here to talk about
anyways, episode 4 of Picard, Absolute Candor.
Stay on target.
And you'll recall that at the end of episode 3, Picard got himself a ship. Yeah, he got himself a ship.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Dr. Girardi and Rafi and Captain Rios and all of Captain Rios' holograms. And they flew off to the planet of Free Cloud to find Dr. Bruce Maddox.
Mm.
The first thing that happened
too, La Sirena.
Oh, yeah.
It looks cool.
It's cool looking.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the sort of like downward, the downward facing nacelles instead of the upward facing ones. So the episode begins with a flashback, right, John?
Which that's become, I think that's the Alex Kurtzman.
Every episode so far has started with a dream or a flashback.
He likes his flashback storytelling.
I have not. I have to be honest with you guys. I have not watched this. We're recording this a week after the episode.
Actually, episode 5 is officially out now at this point.
Yeah, 5 came out today, and I haven't rewatched it. So my memory
boy.
Watched
it. It's
gonna
be fun then, because
I think we'll be all right.
Pretty loose too.
I watched it twice, so I think I'll be all right. The first thing that happens is we see a flashback to 14 years ago. Picard beams down to a planet called
Panama Jack beams down.
Yeah. Picard beams down to a planet called Vashti, and Picard is wearing the same outfit that Hannibal Lecter is wearing at the end of Silence of the Lambs.
Right, exactly.
He walks off into the distance to go eat the psychiatrist. Yeah, he's wearing like a white linen suit and a white hat. Mm-hmm. He looks like he's gone on vacation,
or safari
in the 1930s. He beams down. Everyone's happy to see him. All the Romulans are happy to see him.
You've also been told that this is a Romulan reclamation planet. Like this is
relocation, not reclamation.
Yes,
relocation.
So
he beams down to this planet. All the people there are happy to see him. He says, "Yes, we're continuing our work." He's got his Starfleet badge on, so you know that he's still, part of the Starfleet at that point.
This is before the Mars incident, then.
Correct.
No. Yes.
Because he finds out.
Right. He finds out about it during the flashback.
So he's talking to the Romulans, and they're all happy to see him. And he's like, yes, we're continuing our work, and we're going to keep doing what we're doing, and we're going to make everything, cool here on this new planet for all of you. Then he goes to see you see a little boy, and the little boy spots Picard, and the little boy runs away. And he runs in to see these women. And he's like, here comes Picard. Picard is coming. And then Jean-Luc comes in. And Jean-Luc walks in, and he clearly knows these women. And it turns out that these women are called the Qowat Malat.
Yes.
And they are
Qowat Milot.
L-A-T. They are a sect of Romulan warrior nuns.
Yes. Badass women warrior nuns.
And they are super cool. I liked the warrior nuns a lot.
Can you describe their outfits, their dress to me?
They were amazing.
They are sort of nun. They are sort of nunny.
They wore black. They sort of had a habit.
A thing on their head, and like a habit, a wimple or whatever that's called,
like a Catholic nun.
But no
not
white.
the same color. Like all
no
black.
white. It's all black.
And so he's got the sort of head of the nuns is sort of Picard's buddy. And the two of them are talking, and it turns out that the nuns practice this policy called absolute candor, which
the
is
way of absolute candor.
Because as you know, Min, Romulans are sneaky. Historically, they're very secretive.
Yeah.
They don't like to tell anything about themselves. These particular nuns have rejected that that philosophy of Romulan society. And they've swung the pendulum all the way back in the opposite direction. And so they practice absolute candor, which means they just say like a really
they think.
like whatever, like a mean person online or something. They just say whatever they think. First thing she says
people off or not.
First thing she says to Picard is, "You look old." Oh, okay. Well, that's that Romulan absolute candor thing you're doing, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
And so he's become friends with these nuns, and these nuns are sort of peacekeepers and philanthropists. Like
they are the ones sort of spearheaded to relocation.
The saving of the Romulans. They're sort of his inside group with the Romulans. And the little boy is this little boy named Elnor, who anybody who's listened to my appearance on Weekly Trek whenever that episode aired, will recall that when he grows up good. He looks real good.
He's an attractive man, that is true.
Very handsome man when he grows up.
He looks a lot like Orlando Bloom in Lord of the Rings, but with black hair instead of hair.
Were you a big fan of Orlando Bloom, Matt?
Yeah, in Lord of the Rings era. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
At this point in time, Elnor is still a little boy.
Yeah, he's still a little boy. This is all still the
flashback. Yeah.
So the little boy comes running in, and he's happy to see Picard, and Picard's like, and she's like, and the nun is like, "Don't bother Picard. He doesn't like children." Because again, she just says whatever the fuck she's thinking, right?
Yeah.
And Picard famously doesn't like children.
I never knew that. Really?
Oh yeah. Historically, on the old show, Picard famously did not like children. Hated Wesley for like a long time.
Well, I mean, that might be a Wesley thing, not a children thing.
There's a great moment.
No, he just likes all children. He's very uncomfortable.
He's uncomfortable. In the pilot, he specifically tells Riker, "I don't like children, and we have children on this ship, and I want you to be my sort of buffer so that I don't have to interact with the children."
Isn't there an episode where like kids gift him some sort of like kid craft thing?
On they start celebrating Captain Picard Day and stuff like that. He softens over the 7 years of the show, but I'm saying like historically, it's been established that his character does not like.
I never knew that. That's awesome.
There's a very funny moment in the first season of The Next Generation that has since become a GIF. It's become a meme where Picard just turns and goes, "Shut up, Wesley. And that's become like, you see that on the Trek, Twitter a lot. People post that. Picard just telling Wesley to shut the fuck up. It's pretty fun. Anyway, he likes this particular kid. And that's what he says. He says, I may not like all children, but I like you. And the kid's like, did you bring me anything? Did you bring me anything? He's like, yes, I did. I brought you a book. And the book that he's brought him is The Three Musketeers. And then he says, and he tells the Romulan nun, I brought you some like fancy chocolates or whatever, something that she wanted. It looks exactly like a box of Werther's Originals, but it's probably, I don't know what it's supposed to be, but that's what it looks like. So anyway, he's clearly made some inroads with these people and they like him. That's what they're establishing, right? Because we're going to see this is what happens post flashback. We'll see how things have changed with him.
So these nuns are just sort of like they're peaceful, good nuns. They're just sort of sassy.
They're badass warrior nuns.
They're warriors.
But they're helpful.
But they are
humanitarian.
They are chaotic good.
Oh
yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And he says to the head nun, Picard says to the head nun, hey, I thought you were going to or she says to him, we have to find some place for Elnor, this little boy.
Right.
He can't live with us because we are an all-female cast of warrior nuns.
Yeah.
Boys are not allowed to be in the Koat Malat. And Picard's like, well, I'll help you and we'll find someone to raise Elnor. So the impression that you get is Elnor is an orphan and that his parents are dead and the nuns are raising him, but they want to find a place to relocate him with a new family. So then what happens, Sean?
Well, there's some stuff about him fencing. He teaches him fencing. Like
Picard teaches the boy?
Teaches Elnor fencing.
Oh yeah, does that happen still in that same?
Yeah, it's all in the flash. Well, I don't know. It's in the first part of the show.
Okay, so he's reading. So you get the sense that Picard really likes this little boy, and there's a scene where he's reading The Three Musketeers aloud to him. They're sort of sitting together on the porch, and the little boy leans his head over and puts his head on Picard's shoulder, and like Picard is reading the book to him. There's a scene where you see them sort of practicing. Picard is teaching him how to fence because there's a lot of fencing in Three Musketeers, and it's been established back on the old show, Min, that Picard is a fencer, right? We see a lot of scenes of him fencing back in the day. So they've got like sticks, and they're sort of play fencing with each other. And the Picard's like, I'm going to parry your move. And the little boy's like, what does parrying mean? And Picard's like, I'll show you right now. It's very charming.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So you get the sense that things are going pretty well.
And he gets a call.
Then he gets his fucking communicator beeps and he's like, hello, who is it? And it's Raffi or somebody telling him that there's been the attack on Mars. That Mars has been attacked by the synthetics. And Picard's like, oh my God, what do you mean synthetics have attacked Mars? I don't understand. And he's like, I have to go. So he says to the Romulans, I'll be back. He says goodbye to not Raffi. He says goodbye to Elnor. He says goodbye to the warrior nun. He says, I'm going to go. He's like, because they're saying we've canceled the rescue mission and we need everybody back here on Earth. So Picard promises all of them. He's like, I'm going back to Earth, but I'm coming back. I'm going to figure out what's going on. And I give you my word, Starfleet is not going to abandon you. We will be back. And then he beams out and he leaves them all sort of like standing there going, what the fuck's going on?
Bye-bye.
Was that all pre-credits?
That's all pre-credits. Yeah, that happens all before the credits. The first thing after the credits is the scene with Girardi and Rios. Where
he's reading the book?
Yeah, and she's like, they call it space because there's so much space, but really there's so much crap floating around.
So Captain Rios is sitting around on
Back to the present.
Ship. Back to the present.
Gotcha.
Captain Rios is on the ship, and he's reading his book, and Dr. Girardi comes in, and she's never really been in space before, you get the impression. Because she comes in, and she's like, hey, what you doing? And he's like, I'm sitting here reading my book, obviously. And she's like, I'm bored. She's like, I did all the programs in your Hollow Suite and they're all Klingon opera. And now I'm bored. And she's like, space is boring. It's all empty. That's why they call it space. Blah, blah, blah. So it's this sort of little charming, meet cute scene between the two of them. Doesn't really have any plot purpose. It's just a little character development between the two of them, where you get the sense that she's a little excited. She's never been in space before, so she doesn't really know what to do with herself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do we know what book Captain Rios is reading?
Yeah, I looked it up when we talked last week, and I forget what it is now. It's some philosophy book. She asks him, "What are you reading?" And he says something like, it's about the existential awareness of the existential dilemma of being aware that you're going to die. And she's like, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. So it's a funny little...
It's a good, goofy little character scene, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then Rafi comes. Rafi's pissed off. She's like, where the fuck are we going? I thought we were going to Free Cloud. Right. You've changed course. And Captain Rios is like, I changed course because Picard told me to change course, and he's paying for this whole thing, so he gets to decide where we go. And she's like, well, where are we going? And he's like, we're going to Vashti. And she's like, fucking Vashti, what a mess. So then there's a scene where Picard is back on, he seems like he's back on his chateau on Earth. He's in his sort of like study.
Yeah.
And he's looking out the window, and he's sort of looking at the vineyards. And then we meet another one of Captain Rios's hologram.
The hospitality hologram.
And what you realize is that Picard is on a holodeck, and that the hospitality program has recreated Picard's chateau for him to have a place on the ship that's his own. Because the hospitality program says, well, Laris and Jabon, remember Laris and Jabon back on Earth? Laris and Jabon thought you might like to have a place that reminded you of your home. So I recreated the holodeck. They sent me the specs, and I recreated this on the holodeck so that you can hang out here, which is basically just an excuse, I think, for the production to reuse sets they built.
Right. 100%.
We spent a lot of money on this chateau set. We got to use it over and over again.
Do you think that he'll be able to talk to Laris and
No. It's just a way for them to use the set and to have it be visually different.
Sure.
You know, you want it to look a little visually interesting,
not
from
just
scene to scene. It looks a little so that they can have this scene that they're about to have in the chateau set instead of on the bridge, the Rios, La Serena.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Rafi comes in. Rios comes in. Rios is like, I hate that fucking hologram program. Deactivate hologram. And the hologram like vanishes as usual. And Rafi's all mad at Picard. She's like, why are we going to Vashti? We're not supposed to be going to Vashti. We're supposed to be going to Free Cloud. That's where Moose Braddox is. And Picard's like, I have unfinished business on Vashti. And she's like, well, we are not even sure we can even get to Vashti because in the years since you've been there, because the Federation was not keeping an eye on it, it has fallen into sort of chaos.
Intergalactic warlords are
so
sort
there
of...
are like thugs.
It's basically run by the mafiosa, essentially.
Yeah. And there's this one dude named Car Kantar who's sort of like the Don Corleone of this area of space now. And they're like, they're like, it's not the Vashti that you remember. It's all troubled and criminal now. And Picard's like, it doesn't matter. Picard talks to Rafi and he's like, I'm old and I may never get another chance to go to this planet. So I have to do this now. And you just have to
accept that.
Learn to live with it.
Deal with it.
Because I may never get another chance to see these people and what became of them. So I have to go back to Vashti because I gave them my word that I would.
Wow. So he does what like, Kirk never did with Khan.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. 14 years later, but he does it. So anyway, Rafi's like, okay, well, if that's what we're going to do, then that's what we're going to do. Meanwhile, Dr. Girardi comes stumbling into this scene, and she's like, is this like a private meeting? Because she's the only other person on the ship, right? She's like, what are you guys all doing in here? And they're like, no, you can stay. Like, you're part of the crew now. You're allowed to be in this meeting. It's very fun. She's very funny.
She's the comic relief so far of the show.
She's bringing a lot of the laughs to the show right now.
Yeah.
And Picard tells her about the way of the absolute candor. Yes. She's like, I think the absolute candor sounds super annoying. Am I the only person who thinks that sounds like a terrible way to behave? It's funny. It's all very cute. So they're off to Vashti, right?
Yep.
Meanwhile, Sean, what else is happening?
Well, actually, the next scene is them going to Vashti.
Oh, really? There's no Borg scene? There's
no
scene on the
Borg scene is next. The Borg scene is next.
So they go to Vashti.
Wait, can I ask, how is Picard paying for the ship and being able to fly around? Do they cover that?
You are opening a giant can of worms.
The winery.
Question, man.
Here's
the problem with that question.
Very lucrative.
Mm-hmm.
Min, yes. You've asked a question that you don't really want to know the answer.
Really?
Because the answer is there is no answer.
Oh, okay.
Because the economics of the Federation and of the future make no sense.
Very inconsistent.
There are so many contradictory things that have been said over the years. Sometimes they talk about the fact that we have no money.
There is no money.
Federation anymore. Like, we don't even care about money anymore because we've abandoned caring about, monetary things, and we've dedicated our lives to bettering ourselves and blah, blah, blah. This sort of utopian, idealistic vision of the future. They say that a lot. But then sometimes they say things like, there's the characters like the Ferengi, where having money is the only thing they care about. And then you have to ask yourself questions like, well, if there's no money, how do they pay for things when they go to planets that still use money? If there's no money, who decides where people get to live? Like, why does Picard get to live in a big fancy chateau and some people have to live in, tiny apartment? It starts opening up all of these questions about socialism and capitalism and what the economics of the future is. And those questions are impossible to reconcile given what we've been told about Star Trek. Yeah. So it just doesn't make any sense. You can't.
There's a lot of hand waving.
What you have to assume, I think, is that after 50 years in Starfleet and owning the family winery, Picard has some amount of money or whatever they use as money that he can hire this ship, right? Because he did. Okay. He hired the ship in the last one.
Gotcha.
You can't. You just have to let that one go. There is no good.
Clooney did sell Casamigos with his partners for well near $1 billion there, right?
Yeah, we talked about that on Warped.
Yep.
Yeah, like $750 million. So you just have to assume that Picard has a pension or something from Starfleet. Whatever.
Immaterial.
The answer is it doesn't matter.
Cool.
So then
go to Vashti.
Vashti has been surrounded by a force field.
The entire planet.
The entire planet is surrounded by a force field.
You have to be allowed
and there are like certain gaps in the force field, and you have to be given permission for them to like lower the force field so that you can fly through. Yeah. And Picard's like, well, tell them it's me. They'll let me in. Because Rafi, they get to the planet, Rafi's like, we can't get in. And he's like, well, tell them it's me. They'll let me in. And she's like, that's the first thing we did.
First thing we did.
And they were not impressed. And Picard's like, oh, okay. Because remember how I said the show should be called Everybody Hates Picard? Yeah. Jake, insert the jingle here. Everybody hates Jean-Luc Picard. This whole show so far has just been people dunking on Picard, people negging Picard, people like making Picard have to like feel bad about himself. Like, poor Jean-Luc's really been getting it from all corners so far. So they're like, we tried telling him it's you. They don't care. And he's like, okay, well, what else you got? Which I thought was a nice little moment because it was classic Picard. Because back on the old show, Picard was always saying like recommendations, suggestions. You know, Picard never solved the problem himself. He always asked his team like, "What do you think we should do?" And he does that in this moment. And they're like, "Well, maybe we can like do blah blah blah." And then Rios is like, "Actually, they'll take money." So basically, they just bribe the Romulans.
Wow, that was an easy solution there. Nice.
Yep.
This is just like bribery works, and they're like, okay.
Are the warlords? Is it like a Mad Max sort of feel, or is it more? Sean said mafioso. Is it gangstery?
You never meet the warlords, but what
you don't meet the bad guys.
What they tell you in that earlier scene is that there's this guy named what did I say his name was? Cal Cantar. And Cal Cantar has gotten his hands on an old bird of prey. Like an old decommissioned Romulan ship. And that's what he's using to sort of enforce his will on this like little corner of space. Because he's got this ship that, even though it's old and out of date, is still more powerful than anything anybody else has got. It's like if you had a musket, but you went back to
caveman times.
Yeah. Even though a musket is primitive technology, it's still way better than anything the cavemen have.
Yeah.
So he's got an old ship, but it's enough to let him be the boss. But we don't meet him. We don't encounter him at this point in this show.
He beams down, and it looks the same, except it looks pretty downtrodden. Like the look of everybody, the clothes that they're wearing is pretty similar. He sees a place that's got a sign up that says Romulans only, and he's just getting side eye from everybody. Everybody's looking at him, whether they don't like him because they know who he is, or that they just don't like him because he's not a Romulan. It's not really clear, but he's not welcome.
Oh, one more thing I just remembered. When they're back in the chateau, like doing the exposition dump, Rafi or somebody mentions that Vashti has become a hub for the, like, I forget exactly what she calls it, but it's something like the Romulan freedom movement or something like that. So you get the sense that there's some sort of
underground
subversive thing bubbling up in Romulan society. And the reason I mention that is because when he beams down, some of the people on the planet are wearing these like bandanas around their arms that have like an insignia on them. I think that's supposed to be like the Romulan rebellion movement or whatever that is.
Romulan solidarity.
Yeah. So the place is kind of turned to shit. And everybody's kind of looking at him. Sean was right. Everybody's giving him side eye. The sign says no Romulans only, blah, blah, blah. And Picard speaks a little Romulan at this point. So he's walking up to people going, how do you do?
How you doing?
Hello.
Can you give us what's some Romulan sound like? You guys watched it.
I don't remember what it sounds like. Sean, what did it sound like?
No, I don't know.
It sounded like Kashtu Vinaktu or something like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah,
something like that. Sol New Yada. Like, pretty sure
that like a white person speaking Romulan.
Yes, you should hear my Spanish. Every time I speak Spanish in front of an actual Spanish speaker, and I think my Spanish accent's pretty good, but I always just get told, nope. You sound like such a gringo. Anyway, Picard's like, well, things have certainly taken a turn for the worse here. Better go see my friends, the Romulan warrior nuns, the Kowat Malat.
Yep. He sees Elnor at some point in time. He finds them, and then he sees Elnor. All grown up Elnor.
He goes to see the Romulan nuns. They're still in the same old place they were when he left. And I have to tell you, when he walks in, The same nun from the flashback is still there. And based on the reaction that he's gotten so far from every other single person he's met in this entire series, I fully expected her to walk up and slap him. Like, that's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
I was sure that she was going to be pissed to see him. But instead, he did his little, like, Romulan greeting where he, like, they hold their hands out and then they sort of open their hands. And she did the same thing. And she was happy to see him.
Oh, yeah. They were the only people that were happy to see in the whole series. She's the only person so far that's been happy to see
so far. Him. Yeah, only person. Yeah, exactly right.
I'm gonna have to look up that Romulan handshake and try that with Erin to see if she'll know that innately.
I will try to describe it to you physically, man.
Oh, okay.
And then I want you to draw a picture of it.
No.
And take a picture of that picture and then send that to me. And we'll see how well I am at describing it.
And
so imagine holding your hands in front of you.
Yeah. Palm facing
palm out. To palm. Palm to palm.
Like you're praying, except that they're pointing
like
away
you're
from
praying,
your chest.
But horizontally. So your fingers are pointing in front of you.
Okay.
And as you are holding your hands in front of you, you open your hands in a sort of, here is the church, here is the steeple, open the doors, where are the people sort of motion. So Sean's right. It's more like opening a book.
So you have both hands or one hand?
Both hands are in front of you. They're pressed together, as in prayer, but horizontal instead of vertical. So your fingers are pointing in front of you, away from you.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're almost doing like a karate
as if
thing.
You are making a little cup with your hands. You open your hands and sort of curl the fingers in to make a little cup. That's the greeting of the Romulans. So he does that to her. She does it back. They're happy to see each other. She's like, you got even older than the last time I saw you. And he's like, there's that Romulan candor again. There's that fucking nun candor that we all love so much. And then he's like, what the hell happened here? Like, and she's like, what do you think happened? Like, you left. Starfleet abandoned the rescue. Mm-hmm. You never came back. Things devolved in the 14 years.
We had no protection. I mean,
she's like, we try to maintain peace because we're warrior nuns, so we do the best we can to maintain some kind of order. But things have gone to shit. And then fucking Elnor comes in, and now Elnor is a 23-year-old piece of ass.
PYT.
Yes.
And Elnor is like, holy shit, it's you. It's Jean-Luc Picard. And he's not happy to see Jean-Luc because he feels like Jean-Luc abandoned him.
Right.
He's like, And Picard's like, why is Elnor still here? I thought you were going to find another family to relocate him with. And the nun's like, bitch, we tried.
No one would take him.
There was no one here to take him. So he's grown up with us. And and Picard's like, is he a Kowat Malat now? And she's like, no, because only women can be Kowat Malat. But we trained him like one, so he is a warrior badass nun, but he's a boy. And because of that, he will never really belong here. So Picard starts thinking,
she kind of doesn't she tell Picard, you need to take him because he can't belong. He won't belong
like,
here.
Maybe
ever.
he should go. Yeah, she's like, maybe he should go with you on whatever insane mission you're going on. And Picard's like, he might die if he does that. And she's like, yeah, but it would be better for him to have lived before he dies than to just die here on this planet. Never having really, experienced life. So Picard's
I like that philosophy.
Okay, well, I have to think about that for a second.
To Elnor, Picard is like the dad who went for cigarettes and never came back.
I said this on Weekly
Pretty
Check
much.
when I was on
Yep.
Weekly Check the other day. I said Picard's a bad dad.
Yeah.
Everywhere he goes, people are accusing him of abandoning them, leaving them behind, never coming back when he said that he said he would. Like, Picard's a bad dad on this show.
Yep.
A little unfairly, to
Yeah.
my way of thinking.
It's a lot of weight on
I mean,
his shoulders.
circumstances, but if you're the one
He
that
didn't
was
have a
abandoned,
lot of
does
choice,
it matter?
but yeah, that's a good point. I mean, from their perspective, they don't know what he went through.
Yeah.
They just
All
know
they
that he
know is
left
He
and
just never
never
came
came
back.
back. Fair enough.
So the next thing really is the Borg. What happens on the Borg cube? And this is you're gonna have to because the only thing I remember about the Borg cube scene is them sock skating through the ship.
The Borg stuff was super boring this week. Like they weren't really like
Yeah.
They
There was
didn't
really
spend a lot
all
of
the
time-
interesting stuff had to do with Vashti and Elnor. And
yeah.
that's all the interesting stuff.
It was not about the Borg this week.
Yeah, the Borg cube, like I said, Narek took Soji sock skating through the Borg cube for some reason, and that was pretty much it.
So Sarah, okay, so
No.
I can do a little better than that. I think. Not yet, Sean. So meanwhile, back on the Borg ship, Soji and Narek are still sleeping with each other, and she's sort of trying to find out from him whether he knows anything about the Romulans that got Borgified. So remember last week she met the Romulan woman, and she accused her of being the destroyer, and so Soji's sort of trying to figure out some more stuff about that. She's trying to get to the bottom of this, whatever this.
She's looking at old videos of
she's watching old videos
that taught.
Ramda did, and she's trying to figure stuff out. She's not really getting anywhere. It's really, there was almost zero plot information.
Yeah,
on this.
exactly. So
The only big thing that really happened is he says to her, Narek says to Soji, you came here on blah, blah, blah ship. Oh, the Ellison, which I think is a call out to Harlan Ellison, who the famous science fiction writer who wrote City on the Edge of Forever. He says, you came here on the Ellison, on Stardate, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, that's right. That's when I came here. And then he's like, let me show you something. He's trying to charm her, right? He's trying to get her to open up and tell him her secrets. So he takes her down to some weird venting station that's basically air hockey, right? There's air coming up through these little holes on the floor. So they take their shoes off and they can sort of slide in their socks.
Oh, that's what Sean meant by sock sliding.
Space. Yeah, risky business style. They can sort of slide
yes,
on their
boxers.
And that's all supposed to be very charming. I thought it was a little bit dull.
it was
You're
whatever.
supposed to
Made
get
no
the sense
sense.
that they're falling in love with each other. And then Narek says to her, it's funny that you say you come over here on that ship because I looked at the logs and there's no record of you ever having been on this ship. And then she gets all pissed off and she's like, are you calling me a liar? And he's like, I don't know. Are you? And she's like, well, fuck you then. And then she kind of stomps off. And that's sort of the end of that. It's literally that's it.
Stuff.
I just told you everything that happened with them. The only
That's
other thing
all
that
happens on the board.
is that Narek's sister, who we last saw back being a Starfleet officer, is now on the Borg cube, and she's been Romulified. Her ears, which were round when she was back a Starfleet officer, are now Romulan again. And she's all she confronts him after he has that fight with Soji, and she's like, you better get your shit together. I know you're fucking this girl. They have a weird Cersei and Jaime Lannister energy. They're brother and sister, but they're also weirdly sexy with each other. And it's it's not exactly clear what their whole deal is. Didn't you think so, Sean? Didn't you think there was like a weird sexual vibe between the two of them?
At 100%, yeah. But I felt that since they first introduced her as the sister, the first conversation they had seemed very much like that's what they were going for.
Which is weird because Star Trek is like rated G, very family friendly.
Well, this version isn't because they say the word fuck a lot, but but it's definitely, we've talked about this before. Star Trek has never been a particularly sexy show.
Sexy show.
Even this version is not. Like, they've never even shown any of the guys with their shirts off. Like, they're
right.
It's just not that kind of show. Definitely gave off of the vibe of we're brother and sister, but we might also be flowers in the attic.
Yeah. Sure.
We may have spent some time up in the attic.
Yeah, it happens, you know.
Very Romulan and very Aaron, so it fits in.
Mm-hmm.
This all totally fits.
Yes.
So with she's what talking we know to about brother. Both Romulans and Aaron.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's literally everything that happened on the Borg ship this week. It was a very light week for Borg. They had a lot of...
Yeah. No, the whole point of this episode was the Vashti stuff.
So Picard's like, well...
He's at the nunnery or whatever you want to call it. He says, come with me. And he's like, I would never go with you. You're a terrible person. And so Picard's like, all right, well, I'm leaving. And he leaves. He goes, right. He's in the... Picard
makes the offer, he's in the and Elnor says no. That's what you're right.
And Picard's in the... He sees the Romulans only sign at the bar, and he takes it, and he throws it on the ground, and he walks into the bar, and he's...
Because Picard's like, well, this has been a gigantic waste of time. This whole planet has gone to shit. Everyone but the nuns are mad to see me. Oh, the reason he's gone there, we didn't really talk about this. The reason he went there in the first place is because he wanted one of the nuns to come with him. He needs muscle, right? He doesn't have... Oh,
that's right.
He doesn't have
He actually went to get the main...
Yeah. He doesn't have a fighter on his team, right? Imagine you're building... You're building a D&D team, and you've got a bard, and you've got a cleric... Yeah. But you don't have a warrior class. Like, he needs muscle. So that's why that was his secret agenda for going there, was to try and get one of the warrior nuns to come with him, because they're fucking murderers. And they say, and that's why the nun says to him, I'm not going to come with you, but you can take Elnor. And that's how that all come together.
He's been trained in the Qowat Malat.
He's been trained. Blah, blah, blah. He's the best fighter we've ever seen. Blah, blah, blah. But then Elnor says no. So Picard's like, okay, well, fuck this. This was a giant waste of time. So he's pissed. So he's walking back through the town square to go get beamed up again. And he sees that Romulans only sign outside the little cafe or whatever. And he's like, now I'm mad at these people. And they're all giving him the side eye again. All the same people. They're all looking at him like, we don't like your kind. He grabs the Romulans only sign off the fence, throws it down on the ground, and stomps on it with his foot. Steps on it. Then he walks into the cafe and he sits himself down at a table and makes a big production. It's really pissy. It's bitchy.
Oh, yeah.
Part's being a bitch.
Kind of bitchy, yeah.
This is like, it reminded me of... when an old gay man walks into a gay twink bar and wants all the gay twinks to acknowledge him, and they won't. So he just like pops himself down in the middle of the bar and goes, fuck you all, bring me a drink. Well, that is a reference that neither of you will get, but
I get it. I get it.
And you have to remember that he's been negged for like 4 episodes now. So I think a lot of this is maybe a frustration that has been building up for a little while now, finally being expressed. So finally one of the Romulans stands up and comes over to him and is like, what the hell are you doing here? And he's like, I'm here because I want to drink. And the Romulan's like, you won't remember me, but we've met. Picard's like, oh? And he's like, yeah. I used to be a Romulan senator, And I was here the day that you relocated us all here 14 years ago. And I remember the promises that you made, and you rejected, and you destroyed the Romulan people. It's like, what are you talking about? I saved the Romulan people. We saved as many of you as we could. And this guy's like, no, we would have been fine without you. You took advantage of the fact that we were weak, and you exploited it. So he's one of these Romulan resistance people, right? So what I think you're supposed to get is this idea that in the 14 years that has passed, the Romulans have reframed the history of what happened to them, and instead of being grateful for what Starfleet did, even though it wasn't enough, they now think that things would have been fine
if they had never gotten involved.
Never come in the first place. He's like, Romulans are resilient. Romulans are badass. Romulans know how to take care of each other. If we hadn't relied on you, none of this would have happened. And you and the Federation tricked us into accepting your help. And Picard gets all pissed, and he's like, that's not true. I did whatever I was trying to help you, blah, blah, blah. And it's a good scene. It was a really good scene between those two characters, like setting up the sort of like the different ways of viewing that history that they both lived through. They have very different feelings about what that was and how that all played out. And so then the one Romulan guy's like, fuck this, we're going to kill you. So, or we're going to have a sword fight now. You and me, old man.
If only he knew.
He like grabs Picard and he like shuffles him out of the cafe. Patrick Stewart's 79 years old. And this is a big fucking Romulan dude. Like, he just grabs him and hustles him out of there pretty quick into the town square.
They're going to have a sword fight.
Grabs a sword. They all have swords for some reason. It's never explained. I don't know why the Romulans all have swords, but they do. He grabs a sword and he throws it to Picard, and he's like, let's go, you and me. And so they have a quick little scuffle, and then Picard drops his sword, and he's like, I'm not going to fight you.
Oh.
I don't believe in... he's like, I don't want to... he's like, I'm not going to fight you. This is wrong. And the Romulan guy's like, okay, well, then I'm just going to fucking kill you. And then before he came... And Elnor shows up. And Elnor's like, you should put your sword down. And the Romulan guy's like, I'm not going to put my sword down. And Elnor's like, well, okay then. And then he slices the guy's head off. Elnor just just fucking murder. Because they are Romulan warrior nuns, right?
Like, they ain't take none of that.
They don't fuck around.
Nope.
Oh,
they do not fuck around. There's not even a fight. He just swipes the guy's head off.
Yeah. One move.
And he's like, well, you made a bad decision.
That's brutal. I can't.
And meanwhile, Picard is horrified because he's like, I didn't want you to kill that guy, because he's tough. Meanwhile, back up on the ship, on the La Serena, the local warlord, Kantar, who has the old Romulan ship that he's flying around with, has shown up, and it's going to turn into a fight. So Rafi calls Picard, and she's like, we need to get you out of here right now. And Picard's like, a good timing, because we just murdered a guy.
Get the fuck out.
So we need to go too. So
wait, so now Elnor is down to go with them.
Yes.
Elnor has changed his mind.
Joined the crew. He's got his muscle.
Yeah.
So they beam up to the ship, and Picard's pissed. And Picard goes to Elnor, and he's like, look, if you're gonna swear your sword to me and go on this mission with me, you have to do what I say. And that means not killing motherfuckers unless I say it's okay.
Unless it's okay.
Kill. And Eleanor's like, and he's like, will you agree to that? And Eleanor's like, yeah, okay, I'll agree to that. Picard's like, okay, we're going to let you killing that one guy. We're going to let you off the hook on that. Because you didn't
we'll give you a do-over on that one.
You
you didn't know.
But the new rule is no killing.
Yeah.
It was very
From here on
John
out.
Connor. It was very John Connor and T2 telling Arnold, like, no killing.
Yeah.
Only shoot people in the knees.
Does the bird of prey that Car Cantor have? Does it?
You don't
does
have
that,
to remember that name because he's almost
thank
dead.
God. Oh,
Yeah,
ooh.
it's not going to last long.
Spoiler.
It does the bird of prey have its cloaking still?
No, it looks like an old, not old school TNG, old school original series.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember how the old school bird of prey looked,
Very
but it was
blocky.
basically a big round disc that had the tuna cells just
On the
attached
side.
to either side of the disc.
Yeah.
And then it was painted. It had like a painting of a bird on top of it,
on the
on the top of the disc.
I'll have to look that up. I don't think.
Yeah,
I know
look it
that
up.
then.
You'll
Yeah.
recognize it when you see it. And that's the version that he has in this episode.
Okay.
I feel like I've been talking nonstop for
Yeah.
75 minutes. I apologize. Do I?
Well, the problem is, like, you remember it a lot better than I do.
Okay, so should I just wrap
this
this up? I can wrap this up relatively quickly.
Well, you guys were effusive about this episode. You were like, "Oh, this is an awesome episode."
It's a terrific episode. Man.
What was-
It's definitely it's the best one so far.
Yeah, for sure.
To you, what were the really cool qualities of this episode?
Me or Sean?
Either of you. Yeah. You guys watched it.
Well, I mean, I love the whole Romulan warrior nuns.
Okay.
I love, it was cool. Like the whole stuff with Picard and Elnor is sort of interesting because it's sort of the first time you've seen Picard as being a real dad figure, which is different because you always felt like that was the way that they wanted you expected him to be with Wesley on the show, but he never was. I mean, and then we haven't talked about the last moment of the show, which was the coolest part.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. But I agree with Sean. I thought that the Romulan warrior nuns were cool.
Yeah.
It was just a great Picard heavy episode. Even, there have been a couple of episodes where, I mean, obviously Picard is the main character, but there have been a few episodes where they've spent a lot of time on the Borg ship. It was just fun to see him on another planet for one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
The first 3 episodes, it took 3 episodes for him to get off Earth.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see him in a different setting, doing something that was completely different from what we've seen in the first 3 episodes. It was cool to see the flashbacks and to see how he had this whole history with these people. And it was just a really solid, emotional episode. You can tell that he really loves that kid and had a lot of affection for him. And I think they're going to have an interesting dynamic because Picard is usually not a sort of father figure type, but I think he's going to have that character with Elnor. I think that's going to be sort of their relationship a little bit.
Have any of the Starship captains been parental figures? Have they introduced kids into any of the captains' lives? Not Kirk, certainly.
Deep Space Nine.
Kirk, he has a son.
Was the main.
Kirk has a son.
They don't really develop that.
No,
the character dies. And,
Cisco has a son.
Deep Space Nine is the one that really has
really
he's
got a son.
I mean that's one of the greatest father-son relationships in all of television. I mean, Cisco and Jake are just great together. So now it seems like Picard has got his crew together, right? He needed one more person.
Yeah.
They beam back up to the ship, and Car Kantar and his Romulan bird of prey show up and start shooting at him. So they have a fight scene.
Uh-huh.
Like a
Yep.
space shoot 'em out, which is fun. Shoot 'em up. Captain Rios beams in his like weapons hologram. He's got a hologram for every situation. And they're shooting at each other and it's not really going well. And it's like, oh, things are not going great. We might be getting blown up if something doesn't happen. And then suddenly another ship comes flying in, and this other ship starts shooting at the Romulans, and
Or the warlord, yeah.
and blows up, and the Romulan ship blows up. But the other ship that just came in and saved them, it's going to blow up too. And so Picard's like, beam that
Save
person. There's like one person on the ship.
Yeah.
They do a scan and
Beam
they're
him
like, there's one person on the ship. And they're like, and Picard's like, beam him over here. Beam him over here right now. So right before that ship blows up, they beam it over. And that ship explodes. And then the person beams onto the bridge.
It's an old crew member.
It's 7
No.
of 9.
Oh,
from Star Trek.
okay. Okay.
And she
So it's
says,
Jerry Ryan, who
Uh-huh.
we knew from the previews and such was going to
going
be
to show up eventually.
on the show in some form, and she's now.
Did that surprise you guys? Were you like, oh, it's 7 of 9?
Well, it did surprise me because I knew
because
that she was going to be on the show. Like she was in the previews and stuff. So
I mean, I
we
knew
didn't
she
know
was going to
what
be on
episode
eventually.
she was going to be on.
We didn't
but
know when.
So
So it
she
was
beams
cool.
onto the ship, and she looks at Jean-Luc, and Jean-Luc's like, 7 of 9? Like he's surprised to see her. And she looks at him, and she's like, you owe me a ship, Picard.
Picard
Her ship
then
just blew up.
passes out.
And that was the end of the episode. And then she falls
That's
over,
the
and
end of the
that's
show.
it.
So 2 questions. How is an old, dilapidated bird of prey holding its own against the Larissa?
La Serena.
La Serena. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, La Serena. It sounds like the La Serena is like a modern, updated, ship of the times, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not like designed for fighting. You know what I
It's
mean?
not a battleship.
It's not a battle.
It's more of a transporter.
Ah, gotcha. Just zipping around. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the other question is how is 7 of 9 looking? How are they presenting her?
Her hair is long now, but she looks
Yeah.
basically. I mean, it's been 20 years.
And she's
Voyager
taken out some more of the metal from her face.
No, they don't
she
have
still
her-
No, she hasn't. She still has her exact same
Is
thing
it the
on her
same?
eye.
It seemed like
Yeah.
it was less.
I thought it
seemed
looked
like there
pretty
was
much
less
the
of it.
same. All right.
No.
Well, I don't want to argue with you about that, but
I don't know. You would be the expert, not me.
And they don't have her in the bodysuit anymore?
no,
No,
she was just wearing
like
regular
clothes.
clothes.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So yeah, next week's episode, they're gonna go cosplay.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Is this on another planet or is this holodeck?
Looks like they're
Yes.
going. It looks like they're going to Free Cloud, where they
Which
think
appears to
Bruce
be some
Maddox
kind of Pleasure Island type planet.
casino type planet. Yeah, I don't know. Canto Bites or something. I don't know what it is, but it looks like it'll be fun. I
Picard's
don't know.
got an eye patch.
It was fun to see Jerry Ryan again.
Oh, is that the one where Picard is in black leather or something?
Yeah, he's wearing a beret for some reason. They're all
Yeah,
dressed up.
it-
Captain Rios is dressed like a pimp. It's
Sounds ridiculous.
Looks like it's
Sounds
gonna be
great.
fun.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
I said on Weekly Trek that I thought that one of the things I missed in this new era of Star Trek was wacky leisure wear, because the leisure wear on Next Generation was crazy. The things that they would put them in, their vision of what people would be wearing in the future, outside of the uniforms.
Yes.
I mean, the uniforms look great, but whenever they were wearing just their regular clothes, they look insane. And I was like,
Yeah,
they should have
like-
more of that. Like, I missed that.
Yep.
So this episode looks like maybe we'll get some of that, because they're going to be all dressed up in wacky clothes. So I'm looking forward to it.
So should we sign off?
Well,
Fellas,
before we
or
do, I
anything else you wanna
want
say?
to
other
I want to let
questions?
listeners know. I texted you guys. I don't want the answers right now. I just want to tease listeners with this item for next time. I wanted us to come up with names for the following 3 things. One, we talked about before in previous episodes, the secret Romulan society, the Tau Shiar, and then the second, even more secret society, the Zat Vash. I want us to come up with the name for the secret Romulan society that is even more secret than any of those.
Okay.
Number 2.
The quarter pounder is my...
Yeah, perfect. You're already giving your answers away. Number 2, I want us to come up with the name for your secret or not so secret love child with Jean-Luc Picard. What would you name your love child? And then number 3, I want us to name the Picard's pit bull, number 1. Give him a real doggy name. We'll answer that.
You don't
next
think his
So
name
we'll have our
is
answers.
you don't think his name is number 1?
Yeah, probably. But I want another name. I want a
What?
doggy
You don't
name.
like number 1 as a name?
Nah, I don't really like number 1.
All right.
Oh, hey.
Got it.
Speaking of which, speaking of questions for the audience,
Uh-huh.
according to Twitter, Data smells like metallic-y and cinnamony.
Yay!
Interesting.
Metallic cinnamon.
Yeah, cinnamony metal.
Yeah.
So that was a question I asked on Twitter.
Yes.
Hey. How's Twitter going for you, Matt? You reached 100 followers, didn't you?
I did today. I reached on,
Awesome.
and weirdly, my 100th follow was Liz Calloway, who you guys won't know, but she is a very famous Broadway musical theater performer. And I was like, Liz Calloway followed me? That's great.
That's awesome.
Well, you are very
I have
active on Twitter.
no idea why, but she did.
And
I'm thrilled. My
You're-
first
That's awesome.
famous follow. My first famous follow.
Where do you see those tweets? What's it called?
Yeah, take us out.
Well, why don't we go ahead and just wrap things up, and I'll go ahead and do the thing. How about
Yeah,
that?
go ahead.
Thank you all very much for listening to Inside Picard. We will be back soon. Yes. We need to talk about how often we're doing these because
We'll figure it out.
But anyway, you can rate, review, and subscribe to Inside Picard and Warped on Apple iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram at Warped the Podcast, on Twitter at Warped Trek. You can follow me personally on at Host Warped. You can follow Min on at
Wet
what
Maynard.
is it, Min?
Wet
At Wet Maynard
At
Yes.
Wet Maynard.
for our D&D and Call of Cthulhu podcasts
Mhm.
and YouTube streams. You can go to patreon.com/warped to give us money for bonus episodes and
Yay.
extra content. Did I forget anything? I don't think I did.
So, that's it.
That's it. I think
Until
that's
next
it.
week. Thank you all very much for listening. You guys, we're going to watch Star Trek 4 this weekend.
So excited.
Yeah.
Whales. Back to the 80s.
You
I
guys
love
have
it.
a
Until
good
then,
time. I'm
Thank you all
sad
for
I'm
listening.
missing this one.
My name is Matt.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Min Win.
Thank you for listening. Good night.